Welcome to the funnel. My name is John Shea, and I'm the president of Alignment Group. This is episode 190 of the funnel, sales coaching for new hires. As always, stop by alignment-group.com/the funnel, subscribe, and we will send you the show notes. Okay, today you will learn structure beyond the onboarding process, identify strengths and weaknesses, role-playing exercises, and continuous coaching. So I thought coaching would be sort of the natural progression beyond the sales hiring process, onboarding, and kind of moving into the next phase with a rep. And I think the primary role of any sales manager as the leader of the team is to put them in a position to be as successful as the sales reps can be. So there's a lot of talk about sales enablement these days, right? So that's part of the sales enablement role, make them more effective. Unfortunately, most managers fall into the traditional sort of coaching role, and it's kind of across the board for the team, right? So everybody gets the same coaching. Everybody gets the same conversation or discussion. And maybe if you're in the car with a more senior rep, there's less coaching, or you're in a meeting with them, there's less of the coaching, more of a pep talk. And I think what should happen with coaching is the same thing I've preached with the hiring process, the onboarding process, is to build some structure into it, to make it more effective. We all need help. We all need coaching. We all need development. And adding a little structure to it, combing in some of the tools and data that's available these days, and putting a plan around it is going to put you in a better position to coach your team than sort of winging it or waiting for that time you get in a car ride together. You have a call every 2 weeks. If your reps maybe are spread out across the country or regions, et cetera, et cetera. So let's talk about structure, and let's talk about how that works, and what you should do with the structure of sales coaching. So let's start with setting the stage. It's pretty simple. If you build out your coaching program similar to what you build out with onboarding, minus all the other departments and the interaction of other people, and you sort of build it around your one-on-one interaction with your sales rep, right? So you build it around your interaction. Now, I suggest you talk to your rep more than once or twice a week. I see a lot of folks, and I've had clients, they've got people around the country. So VP of sales for this major company I was working with, energy company, really didn't meet with his reps unless they needed something. So we changed that. And we talked about interacting with them on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. Now, the daily could be a 5-minute, hey, what's happening today? What's going on tomorrow? What'd you do yesterday kind of thing. The weekly conversations, there's different types of conversations you should have. You need a pipeline meeting, and you can work on the scheduling of that and how that works in terms of time and intervals between. The same with your sales coaching. It's very similar to onboarding in that you lay down the track, you lay down the plan, you put it in the calendar, you build out that weekly schedule, and what you have is something that's a little more consistent. They know that this is their coaching time. I'm going to say this about scheduling it. Things come up. Happens all the time. One of the things we do when we look at our schedule and we're trying to bump things out to make room for whether for meetings or appointments or conversations, even in some cases, free time. Sales reps are looking for free time. They'll bump things like the training or the coaching. And I would say that, like any other meeting, it's set in stone unless something big happens. Somebody gets sick, vacation, et cetera, et cetera. I think it just stays on the calendar as a meeting. And so you wouldn't cancel meeting A with a client to meet with client B unless it was an emergency. And that happens. But you're not going to do that on a regular basis. So don't allow it to happen here. And as the manager, the VP, don't allow that to happen to yourself. Don't do that. In addition to the structure, building it out, there are tools you can use. So again, you're involving more than just yourself. There might be some training modules that the manufacturer provides. And I would suggest that you go through them before you just assign them, right? You pick what you need. There's all kinds of things you can use to enable them to get better, and then you can come back and have a coaching conversation on that. One of the things I do is I send reps when I'm working with them and coaching them, I send them away with homework because I want them to be involved and get back to me. And I want to see that they're committed. So I give them homework. And they can get all that kind of heavy lifting done. So our coaching time is used just for that coaching. Obviously, you're going to involve the mentor. If the mentor is part of your process, you've built a mentor program, you can still coach your rep beyond their meetings and discussions with the mentor. So don't feel like you have to wait until the mentor time's up. I think that's on a schedule, and this needs to be on a schedule. Now, here's what's happening. Everybody's going through their mind and saying, wow, you got mentoring time, you have this time, you have that time. When is there time to sell? There's plenty of time to sell. Part of what you need to do, just as a side note on your sales sort of enablement initiative, is to take the busy work off their schedule. So if they have silly meetings, like I had a client that would bring the entire sales team in for a meeting on every project weekly. They'd go through every project in the company. The entire team would sit there. Well, for one, each member of the sales team has a certain number of projects they're involved with. So they have to sit through everybody else's project discussions. That's busy time. That you're wasting their time. So we changed it. Said, okay, have your structured project meeting with the project management folks. Have the list of projects in order of sales rep. So the first 3, we're going to talk about X sales rep. The second 3, Y sales rep. Use GoToMeeting and pull them in when their time is due. So if the first 3 are scheduled for 20 minutes of the meeting, I can't remember the time. It was like a half hour, maybe 20 minutes. Then the sales rep's there for the first 20 minutes. Then they bug out. The next one comes in, jumps on. So your schedule, John, is it from 8 to 8:30? Bill, your schedule's from 8:30 to 9. So they just come into the meeting and they just keep going. Now you went from a 4-hour meeting for the entire sales force to 30 minutes per rep. You just gave them back 3.5 hours. So just keep that in mind when you're putting this stuff together. And the mentor scheduling can be before hours. It can be early in the morning, coffee meeting, or it could be later in the afternoon or early evening before they shut down their day. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in the prime of the selling day. The same with the coaching meeting. You can do that first thing in the morning or later in the afternoon. I like to do things like that first thing in the morning because the day tends to get ahead of you. So if you're one of those people that you start out the day behind, then you probably should do it early. You know, it's like my doctor. I used to schedule appointments. When I had this other doctor, and I don't have him anymore because I moved, but I had this doctor that would basically start his day a half hour late because he'd show up for work a half hour late. This is my doctor. So I scheduled the first appointment, right? Because the first appointment, at least I would be the half hour. By the time he got to the end of the day, and I found that out early on, is he's like 90 minutes behind. And you're sitting there till 6 o'clock at night waiting to see the doctor. You're there in the office for 90 minutes. And if you don't get there and sign in on time, then they cancel your appointment. So it was kind of ridiculous. Anyway, change doctors, but that's the point. So let's talk about beyond the onboarding process. So I think people view this stuff when I talk about it as sort of this linear movement, right? Hiring process, obviously, move into boarding process is linear. And then boarding to mentor, mentor to coaching. And no, there's overlap. Mentoring is part of the onboarding process. So is coaching. It starts at the onboarding process. You're setting the stage, and I said this in the last podcast, you're setting the stage for how you're going to operate with this person. Why is that important? Because there's not a lot of that being done in the sales world today. Not a lot of coaching in a way that is structured and built properly. So what happens is people come through their onboarding, and the next thing that happens is they're sort of unleashed on the world. And, we'll meet once a week, we'll talk about your pipeline, and we'll move on. And that's not healthy. You really don't have a pulse on your team when you do that, for one. Two, you can't address the things that they need help with. If they're struggling, let's say 6 months from now they're struggling, you can't figure out why. You can't figure out why because you haven't been working with them. So it continues way past the boarding. It's part of the development process. It's part of the corporate culture. You're building on what they've learned, except now you're doing it in live opportunities. In the beginning with onboarding, there weren't that many live opportunities to sink your teeth in. Now they're bringing stuff to the table, or they're getting inbound leads, or however you're managing that. They're live opportunities. That's your opportunity to do some real quality coaching. That's the important part, is you can really get a pulse on how good your sales rep is and where they need help by working with them on deals. Now, I'd say there's a little more to it than that, and we can take advantage of some of the tools and the data that's available to us. That's when it gets really strong, right? So you're going to identify the strengths and weaknesses. So we'll start with the assessment, right? We do a candidate assessment. They go through the process. They get hired. In that assessment, there's information on their skill sets right there. It's right in front of you. Tells you what they can do, tells you what they can't do. You can also convert that into a full-blown sales assessment, because we have two. We have a candidate assessment and we have a sales rep assessment. As part of the process, you just request the candidate, or you request the sales rep assessment once you've hired somebody, and that conversion is free. So it's a little bit more detailed document. So right there in front of you, you have your blueprint for that rep. Nothing's really, really, really changed in a significant way in the first 90 days they're hired. If you're doing it with an existing team, let's say you've analyzed your existing team, and I've gone through that exercise multiple times with companies, bring us in to analyze their team and make recommendations, you'll see right away where their strengths and weaknesses are. And you can build your structured coaching program around that. You're going to do a gap analysis. Where are they now? Where do you want them to go? That's going to drive the plan. Okay, so let's do something simple. Can they articulate your value prop? Can they handle objections? How are they at closing? So you build the schedule around that, and then you make room for adjustment. Why do we make room for adjustment? Well, let's say they're involved in a deal and they're struggling, and your coaching session is working on, closing, but they're having a problem with objections. Deal with the objections. I'm not saying get off track every week, but sometimes that happens. Leave yourself room for that adjustment. Don't be too rigid, but be rigid enough that they get what they need for long-term success. Don't underestimate the value of role-playing exercises. I think they're fantastic. There are some people that are very uncomfortable with them. They're usually uncomfortable because they're stupid. Don't make them stupid. Okay? Make them fun, of course. Sometimes role-playing within a deal is very helpful. What happens if they say this? So let's role-play this. You're presenting to me the final proposal, and I'm going to be the customer, and I'm going to fight back. I'm going to push back on you. Let's role-play that. Okay? Why is that good? Because it's a real-life situation. They can see it right in front of them. They understand it. And you're pushing back on them in ways they haven't been pushed back on before. Because what happens is you inevitably get in these opportunities or in these meetings, and they ask a question you never thought they'd ask. Right? So with some of that role-playing, that's helpful. So let's talk about what that role-playing looks like. First of all, it's ongoing. It should happen all the time. Again, it's deal related, right? So you're focusing on specific deals. You're combing it into your coaching. So if you're doing a coaching call and you're focusing on qualifying, you can use the deal as an opportunity to coach on that and role play that. And what you might uncover, let's just say that's a weakness of theirs. What you might uncover is that they're in the middle of a deal that they think is ready for proposal or closing, and you're role playing, and they can't answer the questions. They can't answer the simple qualifying questions, which tells you they haven't fully qualified the opportunity. So you can guide them or manage them to go back and finish the qualifying process. What if scenarios are great? What if they say this? What if they do that? So you start throwing curveballs at them, serious curveballs, not silly ones, and get them to feedback. Like I said before, I think I said this before, a manager was really good at this. Would role play exercises around the room as a team and would role play individually before, as a coaching call, would role play in the car before they went into appointments. And it worked well. This is one of the things that never goes away. You can make it fun. And I'm saying, like, what I mean by stupid, I got to go back to that. Like I had an interview years ago, a guy put a styrofoam cup in front of me and said, sell me that styrofoam cup. I'm like, I'm not going to sell you a styrofoam cup. For one, they're like the worst things in the world for the environment. So maybe we shouldn't be using styrofoam cups. But beside the point, I'm not going to sell you a styrofoam cup. We're here to talk about medical sales or whatever it was. This was back in my 20s. And I just felt like it didn't make sense. And I understood where he was coming from, but it was silly. To me, it was silly. I think you need to be real. You can have some fun with it, but you need to be real. And you need to be serious about it. And you need to do it on a continuous basis. Role playing is a tremendous tool that, if you get really good at it as a manager, will help your sales reps immensely. Okay, I want to talk about continuous coaching because this part really sticks with me. And I think people tend to drift away from this as business and life takes over. And the worst thing you can do with sales reps is commit to doing something, doing it for like a month or two, and then stopping. Why? Because then they become accustomed to that habit. And I've told business owners and managers before, they just wait you out. Oh, here he goes again. Here she goes again. Bringing out a new program. This will last 90 days. Just hang tight. Hang on. After 90 days, they'll forget about it and they'll move on. You don't want to do that. You want to make it part of the culture. Because you've already set the stage. Right? You've set the stage because you hired somebody. You've taken them through the onboarding process. You've combed in a mentor. You've combed in the coaching. Now it's just normal. It's part of the daily routine, monthly routine, weekly routine, whatever it is. It changes over time because you can access more tools. When we're talking about sales enablement, what are we really talking about with sales enablement? Giving them back the time to do the things that they need to do to sell, while at the same time positioning them to be as successful as they can possibly be. And what that means is better tools, better use of the tools, better access, less administrative overhead and tasks for them, while enhancing their skill sets. And the coaching portion can involve all of that. So you might be coaching someone who maybe is struggling with meeting accountability objectives with the CRM because they don't know how to use it. Great. Spend a little time coaching on that. This is why it's going to benefit you. Show them how it works. It changes over time, right? So it can evolve. It can be a continuous thing. You can go back and reassess somebody after a year. See where they are. It's a great opportunity to review. And one of the things that I love about it, I really love about it, is it reduces slumps. You know, sales reps get in that slump and then you're like, I got to figure out how to get them out of it. She's really having a rough time. Well, here's the deal. If you're working with them on pipeline and you're meeting with them and coaching them and on a regular basis, you're going to recognize that before they recognize it, that it's coming or a problem, and nip it in the bud and reduce the amount of slumps that sales reps are having. It is a great way to create long-term success and consistency. As always, subscribe to The Funnel, alignment-group.com/The Funnel. You can find us on social media, facebook.com. My Twitter handle, @ShayJohnR. I'm on LinkedIn, Google+. Email me, jshea@alignment-group.com. Our website is www.alignment-group.com. And I did the I haven't done that in a while. So anyway, stop by the website. There's some really cool stuff there. Anything that you can think of that you would like to see on a podcast, reach out to me. I'm here to answer your questions and respond, and I love doing it. So I've gotten some good feedback and some emails, and especially on the specific topics, and I usually respond to those pretty quickly. Again, thank you for subscribing, and until next time, keep filling the funnel.